Welcome back. Here's a quick recap. As Sloth begins to leave, Raon watches his retreating figure and steels himself. Not until Sloth is long gone, and the sun rises again, you absolutely must not collapse, he tells himself, forcing his body to stay upright. He turns, and meets Wrath's furious glare. You son of a bitch, Wrath growls, cursing Raon for what he's done. Raon exhales sharply, thoughts racing. Now that I think about it, that was really dangerous. If I hadn't known Sloth's patterns, or if Wrath hadn't agreed to the bet, he pauses, his gaze shifts to the unconscious soldiers sprawled across the ground, or if anyone inside the castle had stayed conscious, I wouldn't have been able to use this method. He looks up at the towering fortress, its silhouette still cloaked in shadow, a hopeless night that felt like it would never end. And as the Demon King's figure vanishes into the distance, the unyielding darkness finally begins to fade. The sun rises. If you're new here or need a refresher, I highly recommend checking out the previous chapter before diving into this one. And before we begin, a massive shout out to Sizzling Meme for the super thanks. Your support means the world. Now that we're all caught up, let's dive into this new chapter. Commander Milan slowly regained consciousness, his hand instinctively rising to his face. As he sat up, he gazed out at the castle before him. A mixture of relief and fatigue etched on his features. Looks like I lived. Around him, the other soldiers were stirring, groggily coming to their senses. They looked around, disoriented, taking in their surroundings. Milan grasped his sword, his mind racing with memories of the night's chaos. I clearly remember having felt a shockwave of energy towards the end of everything. The energy of a transcendental, who has reached the realm of absolute. His thoughts were tinged with awe and worry as he recalled the Demon King's angry face before he lost consciousness. A look of concern creased Milan's features as he thought, it was enough to remind me of the Northern King of Annihilation. How can I be alive after that thought? The question hung in the air, a mixture of disbelief and unease. Milan rose to his feet, and Tyrion's voice cut through the air. Commander, you're all right. Milan's response was measured. Tyrion, what about the others? Tyrion's reply was confident. Yes, everyone's all right. But as Tyrion's gaze fell upon something, his expression changed in an instant. He became shocked and speechless, his eyes fixed on something that seemed to have left him frozen in awe. Milan's curiosity was piqued, and he followed Tyrion's gaze, asking, what are you so shocked by? Milan's gaze followed Tyrion's, and his eyes widened as he took in the scene. Raon stood atop the walls, his sword still in hand. Milan's voice carried across the distance. Raon. Raon's head turned slowly, his eyes locking onto Milan's. Raon's voice was measured. I kept my promise. His face, however, told a different story. The weight of his exhaustion was etched on his features, his eyes sunken and his skin pale. Tyrion's thoughts were a jumble of questions as he gazed at Raon's worn-out form. Did he really manage to stop that monster? The memory of the Demon King's aura still lingered in his mind, and he recalled how both Raon and Milan had stood before the beast, radiating an enormous amount of energy. Even the commander had been knocked unconscious. How did he manage to stay standing until the end? Before Raon could finish his sentence, I'm glad you're all right. His body began to sway, and he fell unconscious. Milan's voice rang out in worry. Raon. Tyrion's eyes widened as he called out, hey, and rushed towards Raon's falling form. Milan caught Raon's unconscious body and gently placed him on his lap. A broad smile spread across his face as he turned to the soldiers and shouted, the battle is over, applause for the hero. The soldiers, still shaken but relieved, erupted into cheers and applause, their voices echoing through the castle grounds. 3 days later, inside the Haben castle, life had slowly returned to normal, with people going about their daily duties. But in Commander Milan's office, a look of concern creased Milan's face as he asked, is Raon still not up? One of his officers replied, no, he's still sleeping. Apparently, he's fine, but it's already 3 days since the battle. Meanwhile, in the castle's medical room, Raon lay unconscious, his chest rising and falling with each gentle breath. Commander Milan's voice was measured. Well, I'm sure his body is exhausted from it. It'll take some time for him to recover. Tyrion and Edequil exchanged a worried glance, their faces etched with concern and sadness. Tyrion's voice broke the silence. Anyway, what was that guy? The moment I felt his energy, everything after that is a blank. Commander Milan's expression turned grave as he slowly replied, he was a demon. The officers' faces turned pale, their eyes wide with fear. The word demon seemed to hang in the air, casting a dark shadow over the room. Commander Milan's voice was low and serious. That ominous and cruel aura was definitely demonic energy, an energy shockwave that powerful probably means that he's a demon king. no one can fight unless it's someone like the Northern King of Annihilation. As Milan spoke, a memory seemed to flash in his mind, the aura Sloth had radiated. The officers' faces reflected their confusion and fear, one of them asking, "Then how did Raon manage? None of us died either. I don't see how that was possible." Enequil's question cut through the silence. "Do you think he negotiated with the Demon King?" Tyrion's eyes widened in shock and worry. "Negotiate?" Milan's voice was measured. "Even if Raon is a genius, there's no way he could win a fight against the Demon King. That leaves only negotiation as the possibility. It's just my opinion, but I assume he chose to sell both his soul and body to save everyone." His words painted a dire picture, one that left the officers somber and concerned. Milan's hand rested on his beard as he continued. "I do remember hearing him say the word negotiation while I was passed out." The officer's question hung in the air. Then did he really sacrifice himself to save us? The weight of the possibility seemed to settle heavily on everyone's shoulders. Enequil's voice broke the silence. "Please tell us about Raon. I know that he is no ordinary mercenary, but I don't think you can hide his identity anymore." Milan's gaze seemed to drift inward, his eyes clouding over as he considered how much to reveal about Raon's true nature. His expression turned solemn as he replied, "Yes, it's only right that I tell you now." He paused, his voice taking on a measured tone. "Raon is of the zieghardt bloodline." The officers' eyes widened in shock, their faces reflecting a mix of awe and trepidation. Enequil's voice was barely above a whisper as he murmured to Tyrion, "Well, a 16-year-old as talented as him, are all from the 6 emperors, 5 demons." Tyrion's response was laced with a mix of surprise and understanding. "I knew he wasn't ordinary, but it makes sense if he's a zieghardt." Milan's gaze drifted out the window. "And explain, Raon has sacrificed himself many times to save us. We are heavily indebted to him, so it's only right that we make up for what he has lost." His voice took on a firm tone. "Let us support him from now on." They nodded in unison, a silent vow forming among them to stand by Raon and repay the debt they owed him. While Raon's eyes slowly fluttered open, and he took in his surroundings. The familiar setting of the medical room in Haben Castle seemed to register in his mind, and he thought to himself, "Am I in the medical room of Haben Castle? I assume things went well since I woke up." As he sat up, his gaze fell upon the table beside him, and his eyes widened in surprise. Yua lay sleeping on the table, her gentle breathing a soothing sound in the quiet room. Raon's expression turned puzzled. "What's Yua doing here?" He looked at Yua with a mix of confusion and curiosity. Raon's gaze lingered on the clothes and bucket of water beside Yua, and a realization dawned on him. Did she nurse me while I was sleeping? She didn't even know when I might wake up, yet she did all this. His eyes softened as he looked at Yua's peaceful form, a sense of gratitude and surprise washing over him. As he checked his own body, Raon's expression turned thoughtful. "Anyway, my body's state is not what I had anticipated at all. I thought I'd be a mess because of sloth." Raon's fist clenched, and he thought, "But I actually feel refreshed. I feel like my senses are sharper than before too. What happened?" His mind was racing with questions. When Wrath's voice suddenly echoed in his mind, "Why? Is it strange that your body feels so light?" Wrath's tone was laced with anger and frustration. Raon's eyes widened in surprise as he looked at Wrath, who was seething with rage. Wrath's voice erupted in a furious shout, "It's your head that's strange, not your body. You dirty little fraud." Raon's voice dripped with sarcasm. "Thanks, Wrath. You saved me." Wrath's anger boiled over. "Are you mocking me right now? Do you want to die?" The air seemed to vibrate with Wrath's fury as he circled around Raon. "Scamming 2 demon kings. You're the first one to pull off something like that. I'm sure Sloth is the stupidest demon king to exist too." Wrath's words were laced with venom, his anger and frustration evident. As Wrath continued to rant, his words cut deep. "How does it make sense for your soul's level to rise just because you held up a few minutes against an idiot like that?" Raon's eyes widened in surprise. "My soul's level?" Raon's eyes scanned the system window messages, his mind reeling with the sheer amount of information. "Your soul's level has increased due to the fight against a transcendental being." The message was followed by a slew of others, each detailing various upgrades and increases. The Thousand Flames technique, Bitter Cold Aura, and Glacia had all reached 4 stars. Raon's stats had increased across the board, with boosts to resistance, stamina, sensitivity, and agility. The messages continued to roll in, each one revealing more benefits and rewards. As Raon read on, he discovered the new title, The One Who Cajoles the King, and its accompanying ability. His thoughts were a mix of surprise and excitement. "I didn't really get to check because I lost consciousness, but I wasn't expecting so many rewards." As Raon browsed through the system messages, his eyes widened in shock. Wait, this is... The message that caught his attention. Trait sloth has been created. Stats will increase while sleeping. Stamina and aura recovery speed will be drastically increased while sleeping. Rath's voice echoed in Raon's mind, laced with shock and worry. What? Stats increased while you sleep? Raon's expression mirrored Rath's shock, his face a picture of stunned amazement. As the realization dawned on him, Raon thought, so that's why I felt so refreshed. So that was like 24 hours of training? A wide grin spread across his face, and he burst out laughing. This is nicer than I expected. Rath's anger boiled over, and he began to curse Sloth. Sloth, you idiot, you should have just killed him. The intensity of Rath's fury was palpable. After composing himself, Rath turned to Raon, his voice laced with a mix of anger and curiosity. How much did your stats increase? Raon glanced at his stats, his eyes scanning the numbers before responding. About 11, I guess. Rath's expression turned incredulous. 11? The shock in Rath's voice was evident. Rath's anger reached a boiling point, and he began to berate Raon. How much are you ripping off of me? Raon's response was laced with amusement. It's went up again because you got angry. Just as Rath's tirade was gaining momentum, Raiden burst into the room, his eyes widening in surprise as he spotted Raon. Raon. Yua, who had been sleeping on the table, stirred awake at the sound of Raiden's voice, her eyes fluttering open as she sat up with a start. Raiden rushed towards Raon's bedside, concern etched on his face. You're finally awake. You're all right, right? Yua chimed in, her voice laced with worry. Mr. Raon, are you all right? Raon's calm demeanor reassured them. You're all worrying too much. Just as the conversation was getting underway, Raiden suddenly remembered something. Right, I almost forgot. Raon's curiosity was piqued. What? Raiden's response sent a spark of interest in Raon's eyes. The commander wanted to see you when you woke up. Raon's gaze locked onto Raiden, his expression a mix of surprise and curiosity. Sometimes later, Raon entered the commander's office, his voice respectful as he offered his greetings. I offer my greetings to the commander. Milan's eyes lit up as he took in Raon's appearance. Yes, seems like you're all recovered now. Milan's expression turned thoughtful. I've seen many geniuses until now, but I've never seen one improve as fast as you have. You're gonna surpass me soon. Raon's face flushed slightly, and he replied in a shy voice. No, I was just lucky. Ediquil and Tyrion observed the exchange, their eyes fixed on Raon with interest. Milan's tone shifted, and he spoke with a hint of seriousness. You don't need to be so humble. Raon's eyes widened in surprise as Milan continued. I'm sorry to ask you this so soon after you've woken up, but how did you deal with that monster? Raon's mind racing, he thought, there it is. These people don't know much about the Demon Kings. They might throw me out if I make them think that I have a connection to the demons. I need to make an excuse. The group waited with bated breath for Raon's response, their eyes fixed on him with anticipation. Just as Raon's anxiety was building, Milan spoke up. However, you're not obligated to answer. Raon's gaze darted to the group, his expression confused as he replied, sorry. Milan's words hung in the air. We're aware that he was strong enough to be a demon king. I assume you negotiated with him to send him back, and as for what a demon king could want. Milan's pause added to the tension. We believe that you put your body and soul up as collateral to save everyone. Ediquil's expression turned knowing. It seems like we were right. Tyrion's voice was filled with admiration. Negotiating with the Demon King to save us. You're so. Raon's face turned pale as he listened to their words, his mind racing with the implications. In his mind, Raon thought, I feel like things are turning out how they shouldn't. Rath's anger erupted. You idiots. It was that idiot that gave up his soul, not Raon. Rath's voice was laced with frustration, and what Demon King would care to take a soul and body? Milan stood up from his chair, his expression solemn as he announced, since you have sacrificed yourself to save us, we should do something for you too. The group's eyes locked onto Milan, their faces filled with determination. I pay my respects to all that have done for us, Milan said, his voice filled with conviction. The group followed suit, placing their hands on their chests and giving a respectful salute. The gesture was a testament to their gratitude and admiration for Raon's sacrifices. His voice filled with emotion. All the sacrifices you have made, the Haben Castle supports you, Raon Zieghardt. Milan's expression turned expectant as he said, let us know if you ever need anything. Raon's face lit up with a smile. And he asked, then, there is something I'd like to ask. Milan's eyes widened in surprise. Go ahead. Raon's demeanor turned respectful as he placed his hand on his chest. Please spar with me before I return to my household. The request caught Milan off guard. and he seemed to consider it for a moment before responding. Friends, this chapter comes to an end. To everyone watching, thank you for joining us on this adventure. If you're excited to see what happens next, let me know in the comments, ask for more chapters, and I'll keep them coming. If you'd like to support the channel and be part of our family, consider joining as a member. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help grow this community. Until next time, stay tuned.